The morning after the night before for us Tottenham fans. What a time to be alive. We have hope back. But the transfer window remains open, and as well as bringing in some of the best European talent in football, some of the most reputable ITKs around suggest we're bidding for some of the major European football stars as well. Meanwhile, I'll bring my thoughts on that Liverpool victory 12 hours or so later, including why I think Toni Kinsky may be the absolute key to unlocking Ange Ball. And elsewhere in the Premier League, Manchester City may be about to drop a couple of $100 million on new squad players. Was it ever thus? All this and more on today's daily Premier League transfer news with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are. If you're on YouTube, please give this video a like. Press that subscribe button. I'm getting closer and closer to 15,000 subscribers. I bring you daily Premier League transfer news in the January window and during the summer. Always starting, of course, with my beloved Tottenham Hotspur. I'm recording this on Thursday morning about 10 a.m. So if anything changes before this drops, I apologise for that. But let's get into the transfer talk. And Spurs, according to big rumours from some of the reputable journalists yesterday, are considering a move for former Aston Villa and now Juventus midfielder Douglas Luiz. Fulham have started the bidding with a concrete move for the Juventus midfielder, but are now worried that Tottenham could hijack the transfer should they formalise their interest with an approach. Spurs and Fulham, the two clubs pushing hardest to sign Luiz on loan initially. However, some reports suggest the player isn't 100% sure about leaving Juventus at the moment. Fabrizio Romano himself, the transfer don, says that Nottingham Forest are also among the clubs, as well as Spurs and Fulham, interested in Luiz. He's not been starting regularly at Juventus. He's had some injury issues this year and his situation is open. Tottenham fans, let me know in the comments. Is Douglas Luiz the man you'd like to see Spurs bring in to kind of shore up that number 6 situation at Tottenham? Of course, in the first 5 minutes of yesterday's game, I thought Tottenham, and I'm only talking about a very small sample size, of course, 5 minutes, but I thought Tottenham, with that really sturdy midfield of Bissouma, Bentancur and Bergvall, looked a lot stronger in that area. And unfortunately then Bentancur obviously got his injury, and thank goodness he released an Instagram post late last night saying he's okay, everything's going to be all right. So our worries can allay. It'll be interesting to see what actually his issue was and how long he'll be out for. But I wonder if after that injury, Tottenham will be looking even harder at this potential Douglas Luiz loan, especially if it's a loan without an obligation to buy. Luiz was really excellent at Aston Villa, one of the main reasons they grew under Unai Emery to become a Champions League qualification club. And if he's unhappy at Juventus or not getting the game time maybe that he wants at Juventus, then maybe a move back to the Premier League where he feels most comfortable could be it. And frankly, if it's between Fulham, Nottingham Forest and Spurs, even though Forest are having such an unbelievable season, currently in 2nd or 3rd place in the Premier League, and even though Fulham are currently above Tottenham, I think, in the league, I think Luiz would still pick Spurs. You've got to bear in mind, Tottenham leading in the semi-final going into the second leg of the Carabao Cup, still in the Europa League and in a decent position in 9th in the group of that, with the top 8 qualifying. And of course, the FA Cup begins this weekend with a hopefully relatively easy tie away at Tamworth over on the 3G pitch there. So Luiz could be an interesting one, and I do wonder if that Bentancur injury might hasten up that process to potentially bring him in as cover. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is that one you'd like to see us do? Now, a few weeks ago, I first mentioned how I would like to see Tottenham being interested in Marcus Rashford on a loan deal. Now, I know this causes a little bit of a divide in the Spurs community. I know a lot of people look at how Marcus Rashford has been playing for Manchester United in the last year or so and said he doesn't work hard enough. But for me, I think Marcus Rashford is one of those players who could be unlocked if he gets the right manager behind him, the right manager saying to him, we're going to get the ball to you out wide, you're going to be our main man, do your business, cut in from the left, score goals, get in behind high defences. And that is why I am interested that yesterday some reports came out that Spurs are indeed interested and asking about the numbers about taking Rashford on loan. Any deal apparently would hinge on what proportion of wages Manchester United would be prepared to pay, as well as the size of the fee if there was any option or obligation to buy. The forward's weekly wages are believed to be around £325,000 a week. Now, we know Daniel Levy is not going to go to £325,000 a week for any player. However, We did have players like Ndombele, like Kane, like Lloris, who are each on £200,000 a week. We also had Eric Dyer, who's on probably £150,000 a week. Ivan Perisic up there as well, £175,000 a week. So we have got a lot of wages off the books in the last year or two. And that is why this is a deal that maybe Daniel Levy and Scott Munn could look at and say to Man United, if Marcus Rashford really wants to come to Spurs over any of the other clubs, and a lot of Italian clubs especially are interested in him, but if he wants to stay in the Premier League and try and win back his England place by putting himself in front of Thomas Tuchel week in, week out at Spurs, then what would you be willing to pay to help us with the wages? Remember back in the Emmanuel Adebayor days when he was at Man City and he came to Spurs on loan initially. Man City paid, I think, as much as half of his wages to get him out of their club. And let's face it, United are desperate to get Rashford off the wage bill at Manchester United, and so might be willing to subsidise some of that deal. In the comments, guys, I know it divides people, but do you think Rashford could have a renaissance at Tottenham Hotspur? We need, I think last night, even though we got an incredible result, again it showed we need options in that forward role. We've been linked with Kolo Muani, that's an interesting one, that doesn't go away, but now we're being linked with Rashford as well. And for me, I think he could rip it up at Spurs. I think Ange Postecoglou could be the man to get his arm around him and say, Marcus, you are a brilliant player and you can be one of Tottenham's main men. I would love to see it happen. But I guess, just playing devil's advocate, it goes slightly against the current transfer strategy of bringing in young, exciting talent. But I think Ange has started coming out and saying we also need to top that with some experience and with some leadership. And that is why the potential signings of Luiz and Rashford interest me. Another one as well that has come out yesterday. Spurs, one of the clubs considering a move for Milan Skriniar, a player who's been on Tottenham's list for years and years and years. We wanted him when he was at Inter Milan. We wanted him when PSG bought him. And now we're looking at him again as a potential loan option to shore us up in the short term with our centre-back injuries. Of course, Radu Dragusin had a good game last night again. He's improving all the time. Archie Gray is a Rolls Royce. He's going to be our next Steve Perryman. He's going to be our next Gary Mabbott, a future captain of the club. Just an absolute baller, ripping it up at centre-half, not even his position. But do we need more numbers? Yes. Do we need shoring up? Yes. And does Skriniar have that kind of experience that could really help us in the short to medium term? That's an interesting one as well, guys. Spurs fans, let me know in the comments. Would you take Milan Skriniar at this point? More news now on that Kolo Muani potential move. Spurs made contact with his entourage. They've indicated that Spurs would be a more suitable move than both AC Milan and Juventus, who are interested in him. The club, currently Tottenham, continuing to negotiate with Paris Saint-Germain. But the personal terms, according to a lot of reports coming out yesterday, have been agreed with Randal Kolo Muani and Spurs. This one will not go away. Is it going to be one we get over the line? Or will it be another one, like so many down the years, that Daniel Levy and ENIC weren't able to get over the line and therefore will be held against him? What do you think is going to happen, guys? Let me know. Another kind of smaller bit of transfer news from yesterday. Spurs interested in signing Irish prospect Mason Melia and are weighing up whether to complete a deal in January. That's according to Tom Barkley. Melia's been most keen on joining Spurs out of all the interested parties. He plays for St Patrick's Athletic in Ireland. Due to some rules that have been brought in by Brexit, he won't be able to join a British club until January 2026. But Spurs have been doing well, haven't they, in getting players in for the academy and for the first team who are young, exciting talent. And letting them stay at their clubs for a little bit longer whilst paying the transfer fee and then bringing them in down the line. So this player from Ireland, Melia, could be an interesting one as well. And, of course, just another bit of news that I wasn't able to report, of course. Well, I did report it yesterday, and then the day before I said it might not happen because Barcelona are interested in, but Sonny has, as I mentioned yesterday, signed his new contract. However, some sources came out yesterday to suggest that Sonny not only wanted to extend his deal with the added option of a year, but he was hoping to negotiate a fresh, longer-term agreement. But those talks with Spurs haven't taken place. So for now, only 1 year extra for Sonny. And of course, that is kind of future-proofing him for Spurs in case Barcelona or someone else did come in the summer and want to bid for him, in which case we could get a transfer fee. But we won't be leaving him on a free this summer. Okay, guys, I'm now going to get into a little bit of 12 hours later reaction to that Liverpool game, and I've just made a note at the top just saying that fucking goalkeeper, of whom I mean, of course, Toni Kinsky. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about him in depth because I used to be a goalkeeper myself, and as I mentioned in the post-match instant reaction last night, and during the watch-along, which I was doing on Chris Cowlin's channel, he is our first modern-day distributor goalkeeper, and Tottenham have been crying out for this kind of keeper under Ange Ball. Now listen, Vicario is an elite shot stopper, and my absolute dream going forward is that Vicario can teach Kinsky how to be an elite shot stopper. I think he's a great shot stopper, but let's see what he's like, Kinsky. But I think Vicario is one of the best at shot stopping, and at the same time I hope that Kinsky can teach something to Vicario about how to be comfortable and confident on the ball, because he really was. The things that I love about him, and listen, I know it's only a small sample size again, and it's one game, okay? So I know it might seem like I get carried away, but the thing is, you can just see with players sometimes. You really can. You can just see it within the first 10, 20 minutes. And I saw it with Kinsky. He's both-footed. He was playing a lot of his passes yesterday with both right and left foot. And do you know how important that is in terms of beating the press? Because he doesn't have to turn back onto his right foot each time, just like Fraser Forster does, like Vicario does. He was using both feet. He was chipping it over players with both feet. He doesn't just watch his pass. When he makes a pass into midfield or out wide to his centre-backs, he then makes a better angle for the return, and he does it quickly. He does it quickly, so he's offering an option, and he's showing his defenders, I want the ball all the time. Trust me, believe in me, I'm as good a football player with the ball at my feet as you are. And that means we can then build up in a three ourselves in the centre-backs, because he comes out of his box. You'll have seen it in the first half. He comes out of the box and offers another centre-back option when we've got the ball, and that made it harder for Liverpool to press. And Liverpool are the best pressing team possibly in Europe at the moment. And having Kinsky there was a huge reason we won that game last night. And that is a massive change. He is so composed. His composure impressed me so much. Incredible. Such a young kid. Thrown into the Lions' den. A League Cup semi-final. His first game 3 days into the country. But his composure was absolutely brilliant. His flat distribution. He's the first goalkeeper Spurs have ever had who distributes it flatly. We didn't see his sidewinder kick from the ball in his hands yesterday, but what we did see is flat, long kicks into Solanke, into Sonny. And on different days, and especially when we bring players into the forward line who have acceleration pace to beat their man, that will be an absolute weapon to use over the top. So not just rolling it out every time, but just like Ederson and Alisson now, who have down the years set up so many goals for Man City and Liverpool with their distribution, with flat kicks over the top. Some of those goals being scored against Tottenham. We now have a player, a goalkeeper, who can do the same. And that will bring more goals for us. His decision-making was amazing. And I want to talk about his communication. Screaming at his defenders when they had free kicks against him. How many he wanted in the wall. Telling his defenders from corners, go back and watch it. Directing them, this is where I want you. This is what I want to happen. His starting position, not only in open play, but from corners, was a lot more aggressive. A lot further off his line. And he'll be saying to... we're going to go to Arsenal next week, aren't we? And they're going to try all the blocking techniques and everything. But he won't just be stuck on his line like a lot of goalkeepers are. So that will change it for Arsenal and how they're going to have to move to try and block him. And that will also mean that he's more proactive, just like Brandon Austin was actually at the weekend, to be fair to him. But more proactive, coming for those corners, coming for those crosses. And that means because he's got momentum going towards the ball, if he does get a touch from an opposition player, he will go down easier, and as a result, the referee, just like he did for Austin at the weekend, will blow for fouls. I really like Kinsky's personality. I'm going to use the word monotone here, which isn't fair because it makes it sound like he's boring. He's not boring, but what he is just like, you can tell from the interviews as well. He's not too high and he's not too low. He is calm AF, and that is exactly what you want from a goalkeeper. That will help him on the pitch, just that kind of focus, that calmness. And I love it about him. There will be, this is a little bit of devil's advocate, but listen, I want to know what you Spurs fans think of this, because I think it's absolutely true. We will concede goals because of Kinsky's calmness and his confidence. He will play passes into players who aren't ready for it, or he will play passes to players who aren't able to deal with it well enough, and as a result, we will lose goals. And of course, there'll be times where he accidentally kicks it to an opposition striker and they score a goal. That will happen. But for me, I don't mind. But because his starting position and his confidence and his distribution will score us so many more goals than it concedes us. And that's why I'm excited about this. He made a few important saves last night as well. The one down to his left from Nunez, who'd made a good run in behind. And then the one late on again from Nunez from the cross, where Nunez got kind of a back heel on it at his near post. Important saves. He needed to be focused for them. We'll have to see more about his shot stopping, but I have no doubt that it'll be excellent because, as he said in an interview after the game, the shot stopping is his job. That is his job. That's what he has to do. And I'm going to tell you now, the last I'll say about him, Vicario has a serious fight on his hands here, because he will be looking at that game from far and he'll be like, this keeper can do a lot of things that I can't do. He may not be as elite a shot stopper as I am, but he's only 21 and that can improve. But he can do a lot of things I can't do. And I'm 27 years old and I'm going to need to improve my confidence and with the ball at my feet if I want to get back in this team. For now, it's been an incredible signing, £12 million, what looks like an absolute steal. As I said, there will be ups and downs with him, of course. He's a young player. But we have our first modern day progressive distributor goalkeeper and I am here for it. I am here for it. Ange Postecoglou after the game said this about his debut. He said, brilliant, fantastic. I got the sense when I spoke to Toni before we signed him that he had a bit about him in terms of assuredness that probably belied his years. I threw him a mammoth task today to play against the best team, arguably in the world at the moment, in a big game, a semi-final. He just handled it awfully well. Credit to Johan and his team. They were really big on him as a footballer who's going to fit our style and work really hard to make it happen now. As I mentioned, good news on Bentancur. Ange said this. He said he was conscious when he came off the field and he's been taken to hospital for some observation, so we're hoping he'll be okay. Ange was then, of course, asked after the game whether Bergvall was lucky to be on the pitch. My feeling on that is that the first foul was not a foul. He didn't get any contact on the first foul at all, so that shouldn't have been a booking. Second one was a booking and should have been a booking. But there you go. Ange said this. Great question. No, he wasn't lucky to be on the pitch because the rule is, and we've been told this for quite a while now, that if advantage gets played and it's not a cynical tackle, then it's not a yellow card because we've been screaming it for the last 2 months. It's happened to us consistently. Have a look at our games. We've asked the officials and they've said if we play advantage and it's not a cynical foul, then the yellow card doesn't get given. So to me, that was pretty clear. That is the first time I've ever heard of that. And if the referees are saying that to managers in the Premier League, that is bizarre because I didn't know anything about that rule. It's always been, if it's a yellow card, you go back and give the yellow card no matter what it is. But maybe that is why Dan Burn didn't get his yellow card for that handball in midfield when he'd already been booked against Newcastle at the weekend and it stopped our transition. So maybe there's something to be said for that. Ange was asked about Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall's performance. He said, I'm so happy they're at our football club. And, you know, in 2 or 3 years' time, I just pray to God I'm the beneficiary of their talent because if somebody else is getting it, I won't be happy. That is praise beyond praise from Ange Postecoglou for those boys. Ange was also asked in his press conference about recent frustrations and how he seems to be showing more passion on the sidelines. And he said, it's been an emotional time. I'm a human being. I don't feel great that people at this club, our supporters, don't have that feeling of victory. It weighs heavily on me. I love that from Ange. I love that. He's feeling what we're all feeling and he's taking the responsibility for it. And finally, just one more little piece on Kinsky. He said this, you probably saw it, but I loved it. He said, I'm a big dreamer, but this dream I've never dreamt before. I'm so happy. I only came a few days ago, but I'm happy for the whole team. This is only the first leg. We have more to do. I love that boy. What a goalkeeper he's going to be. Let me know what you think of Kinsky in the comments below. Before I get into some other Premier League transfer talk briefly, guys, once again, thank you so much for watching and listening. Please do give this video a like if you haven't already on YouTube. Press that like button, smash that like button. And also in the bottom right hand corner is the subscription button. Please press that subscription if you want to see daily Premier League transfer news across this January window, always starting with my beloved Spurs, of course. And you can become a member if you want to help me make this daily content. I've got about 60 members. Thank you so much for your support. It's only £1 a month. Come and join the membership community. All the details of how to join on Patreon or on YouTube are in the description box below. Only £1 a month. Okay, other Premier League transfer talk very briefly. Over to Old Trafford, who of course still Man United being linked with pretty much anyone and everyone because they're having such a terrible season. They need to make a sale to finance a £50 million bid for Portugal and Paris Saint-Germain defender Nuno Mendes. That is why so many of their players are being linked with moves away, including Alejandro Garnacho, who apparently Atletico Madrid are keeping tabs on. He is 20 years old and you could definitely see Diego Simeone going in for him. As I mentioned in the opening, Man City are really looking to make some signings this window. They remain interested in 50 million rated Omar Mamouche, but some reports that they may struggle to prize the Egyptian forward away from Frankfurt in January as the German club push for a Champions League place. City are also considering a move for Forest fullback, the Nigerian international Ola Aina. He's 28 years old now, but he's doing brilliantly at Forest this season. Also, German clubs Leverkusen, Leipzig, Mainz, Dortmund and Stuttgart are all chasing Man City's England under-21 midfielder James McAtee. Another situation where Looks like Man City are going to get tens of millions of pounds in for an academy graduate who's barely played in the Premier League. That is why clubs like Tottenham are now looking to improve their academy and get into similar situations, because selling good academy players can bring you in loads of money as pure profit to beat profit and sustainability rules. Over to Chelsea. Fabrizio Romano says that Kieran Dewsbury-Hall can leave Chelsea this month if any good bid comes in. They've informed the player since December about that he can leave the club. He's not been there long, has he? But looks like he is allowed to leave. Aston Villa are tracking Dortmund's English winger Jermaine Bino-Gittens. Over at Newcastle, Slovakia keeper Martin Dubravka may have played his last game to the club as he has an agreement in principle with Saudi club Al Shabab. Fabrizio Romano says he is waiting for a final decision from Newcastle. Jaden Philogene is going from Aston Villa to Ipswich Town. £21 million for a player Aston Villa got back on a buyback clause from Hull in the summer, but he hasn't played for Villa hardly at all. West Ham obviously have their new manager in place now, Graham Potter, and Fabrizio Romano says that AS Monaco have approached West Ham to discuss potentially bringing Edson Alvarez away from the London Stadium on loan. It would be an opportunity for the player to return to the Champions League and be a key player for Monaco. Not an easy deal to happen, but it might happen, according to Romano. Brentford and Cameroon striker Bryan Mbeumo, who yesterday I said was interesting at Man United, is also apparently on South London club Arsenal's shortlist for a summer transfer as well. That's according to Florian Plettenberg. And finally, staying in South London with Arsenal, Inter Milan, currently preparing a bid for 28-year-old defender Alexander Zinchenko. That has been today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Do press like. Do subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 15,000 subscribers. And, of course, you can listen to this on the podcast platforms too, be that Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just go there, type in the Spurred On podcast and listen to me on the audio every day. Guys, enjoy your Thursday. Have a good one.